Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 27, Text number 2. Chapter is titled Understanding Material Nature. Sa esa yari prakrate guneshva abhivisajate ahankriya vimudhatma kartasmiti abhimanyate. स एष यदि प्रकृते गुणेषु अभिविसाजते अहंक्रिया विमूढ़ात्मा कर्ता स्मृति अभिमन्यते स एष यदि प्रकृते गुणेषु अभिविसजते अहंक्रिया विमूढ़ात्मा कर्ता स्मृति अभिमन्यते. Synonym: Saha, that very living entity. Eshaha, this. Here he, when. Prakriti, of material nature. Guneshu, in the modes. Abhivisijate, is absorbed. Ahankriya, by false ego. Vimudha, bewildered. Atma, the individual soul. Karta, the doer. Asmi, I am. Iti, does. Abhimanyate, he thinks. Translation purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. When the soul is under the spell of material nature and false ego, identifying his body as a self, he becomes absorbed in material activities, and by the influence of false ego, he thinks that he is the proprietor of everything. Purport. Actually, the conditioned soul is forced to act under the pressure of the modes of material nature. The living entity has no independence. When he is under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he is free. But when under the impression that he is satisfying his senses, he engages in sense gratificatory activities, he is actually under the spell of material nature. In Bhagavad Gita it is said, Prakriti Kriyamnani, Bhagavad Gita, 3rd chapter, 27th verse. Prakriti Kriyamnani Gune Karmani Sarvasa Ahankara Vimudatma Kartaham Iti Manyate. One acts according to the particular modes of nature he has acquired. Right. Guna refers to the qualities of nature. He is under the qualities of nature, but he falsely thinks that he is a proprietor. This false sense of proprietorship can be avoided simply by engaging oneself in devotional service under the direction of the Supreme Lord or his bona fide representative. Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita was trying to accept for himself the responsibility for killing his grandfather and teacher in the fight, but he became freed from that proprietorship of action when he acted under the direction of Krishna. He fought, but he was actually freed from the reactions of fighting. Although in the beginning, when he was non-violent, unwilling to fight, the entire responsibility was upon him. That is the difference between liberation and conditioning. A conditioned soul may be very good and act in the mode of goodness, but still he is conditioned under the spell of material nature. A devotee, however, acts completely under the direction of the Supreme Lord. Thus his actions may not appear to be of very high quality to common man, but the devotee has no responsibility. Om Agnanatiminandasya Jnananjana Salakaya Chakshurmitan Yena Tasma Shri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manabhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swam Rupa Kadham Mayam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Padakamanam Sri Guru Vaishnavansya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathavitam Tam Sajivam Advaitam Savadutam Paryana Sahitam Sri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Sri Vishaka Vitamsha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanto Namastute Sapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari ऋषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वंशकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे स एष यर्हि प्रकृते गुणेषु अभिविसज्जते अहं क्रिया विमूढात्मा कर्ता स्मृति अभिमन्यते. When the soul is under the spell of material nature and false ego, identifying his body as a self, he becomes absorbed in material activities. And by the influence of false ego, he thinks that he is the proprietor of everything. There we go. Okay, you can see it all now. Yep. So, this is a conversation of Devahuti and Kardama Muni, where when the Devahuti is asking this question in chapter 25, what kind of bhakti should I perform to easily attain your lotus feet? That was the first question, which was answered in 25th chapter itself. But then the second question which he asked was, explain the jnana by which one understands the tattvas. And in reference to that question, Lord Kapila is explaining the Sankhya Yoga in this 26 and 27 chapter. Fundamental principles of material nature and understanding material nature. So, the living entity, under the influence of the modes of material nature, he thinks himself to be the proprietor, he thinks himself to be the doer. Actually, the activities are carried out by the modes of material nature, but he thinks himself to be the doer. Right? He acts according to the modes of material nature. So, he has no independence. There's no independence. The moment is covered by this ahankara, that, oh, I am the doer, I am this, I am that, I am this national Indian or American or this or that, I'm white or black or this or that, a man or women. I mean, so all these kind of different kinds of identification which he identifies himself with. He's, because of his influence on the modes of material nature, his real identification is a servant of the Supreme Lord. And when a devotee, here the Prabhupada explains the difference between a devotee and a conditioned soul. It's called conditioned soul because it's conditioned under the modes of material nature. Right. But the moment he identifies himself as a servant of the Supreme Lord and carries out uh, his activities as per the instructions of the Supreme Lord, like the example given here is Arjuna. Arjuna, we see in Bhagavad Gita that he does not want to fight because he was worried about fighting against his grandfather and spiritual master. In the first chapter of Bhagavad Gita, we see that. And he wanted to be non-violent because he was thinking that, I will incur all these sinful reactions and so many other reasons why he did not want to fight. But then he did fight the war, but under the direction of the Supreme Lord. There was a time when he got completely confused and he surrendered to Krishna as a spiritual master. Karpane dosa pratasabhava pichami tvam dharma samudacheta. Yat shriyasya nishitan bruhitan me shishyateham sadhimam tvam prapanam. He took shelter of the Supreme Lord, and the Supreme Lord instructed him, cleared all his doubts in the entire Bhagavad Gita. In that way, though working in material nature, he is in a liberated state of mind because he is completely under the directions of the Supreme Lord. And that's how a devotee is. A devotee is free, independent. When he surrenders his free will to the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, when he does not surrender his free will to the Supreme Lord, he is bound by the modes of material nature. And he thinks that his sense gratifying, but his sense gratification is based on directly by the modes under which he is shackled. The whole world is bewildered when it comes under the influence of these three modes of material nature. Shackled, completely tied up. It's very, very difficult to cross it, to overcome that. Daivi heshagunamai. Right? Only one who takes shelter in the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord is able to overcome the influence of these three modes of material nature. Otherwise, he is under this false proprietorship that I am the doer, I am this, I am that. The real proprietorship is Bhaktaram Yakatapasham Sarvalokam Maheshwaram. That, the Supreme Lord is a supreme proprietor. He is a supreme enjoyer. He is a supreme controller. And the moment we understand that, we attain, Srila Prabhupada mentions that, that's a peace formula. We attain complete peace. The pangs of material miseries does not affect us. Right. On the false platform, we think ourselves as a doer, ourselves as a proprietor, ourselves as an enjoyer. And when our senses are enjoyed, we feel happy. When the senses are not enjoyed, we feel distressed. That's the material conditioning of life. But on a spiritual platform, when the transformation takes place from that material conditioning to spiritual conditioning, the soul takes shelter on this higher principle of devotional service. And that's his real identity. right? Our real identity is Nitya soul poet Krishna Das, right? We are eternally the servant of the Supreme Lord, right? Mamai Vanso Jiva Loke Jiva Bhuta Sanatana, right? We are part and parts of the Supreme Lord. Our real position is to serve the Supreme Lord by devotional service. And more we forget that, more we come under the influence of material nature. And more we take shelter of the Supreme Lord, more we get the direction to get out of this ocean of material nature. Sansara Dava Niladiloka. Otherwise, we are inflicted by the blazing fire of material existence. The blazing fire of material existence one can overcome only by taking shelter of the representative of the Supreme Lord, the spiritual master, bona fide representative of the Supreme Lord, the Supreme Lord. Right. Are there any questions or discussions on this?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, please accept my humble obeisance. All praise to Srila Prabhupada.
Please accept me.
Prabhu. Prabhu, my question is regarding identity.
Yeah.
Now, we can understand we are not the body, we are the soul, but that's all at a philosophical or an intellectual level. But to actually feel that it seems so difficult. And then they say, fine, like, your last closing statement was shelter of sadhus, gurus, obedience to their instructions. Yes, to some degree, perfectly, imperfectly, whatever we are trying to do, that also. But still, it seems so far away to actually feel that we are spirit, soul, and servant of the servant. So, is there something that over and above what already you're doing, regulative principles, etc., that can accelerate this?
Yeah, very good. Wonderful question. Thank you. Yeah, it's
Sorry.
that's okay. For many, many lifetimes, we are in this conditioned state of mind, right? So overnight, it does not just go away. ब्रह्मांडे भ्रमित कोनो भाग्यवान जीव Guru Krishna Prasada पाय Bhakti Lata Bija. So right now in the practicing stage, it's as you mentioned, philosophical to us. We are having our challenges because we are accustomed to our sense gratification for many, many lifetimes. Means we have to give up our idea of sense gratification even for 2 hours while chanting the holy name of the Lord. Our mind gets distracted and wanders here and there. But how do we come out of that? But still, initially it may be mechanical chanting, but still continue chanting. Till a platform comes where we're completely, do we see around us that everybody is on that mechanical platform? No, around us we see these great sadhus who are completely absorbed, right? We are having challenges to absorb for like say 2 hours a day or something like that. They are completely absorbed the entire day. So the process is not mechanical, the process is working. For us it is mechanical because we cannot comprehend to leap from our limited, say like in 2 hours, we may be able to focus ourselves for 10 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever, or when we are performing our devotional service, right? When we perform devotional service at the temple, making like boga for the Lord or making garlands for the Lord for a while. So, while making boga also sometimes our mind diverts, but no, for a while it is absorbed. So more we increase that absorption, right? Initially, maybe ignorance. Introspectively, we should look at and gauge our mind, like doing a japa retreat. I think Shyam Sundar or Rapat Maharaj was mentioning that we should have a notepad. How many times while we are chanting our mind gets distracted, and put a point. Today's sadhana. Oh, this many checkpoints there are, and we count it every day. That okay, today my mind got distracted 100 times away while I'm chanting. Tomorrow, similarly, we progress that distraction slowly and slowly, hopefully, reduces, and we remain in the association of advanced devotees more and more, so that their devotional service rubs onto us, and we get feeling little bit of taste in performing our devotional service, so that we can increase our devotional service. Right? So the process is there, process is working. For many it has worked. For us, we are in the initial stage, learning ABCDs. Though, okay, we may have been in the practicing stage for 10 years or many lifetimes. But we are still in the practicing stage. And there is hope because we are in the practicing stage. Niha Bikramanastosti Pratyavayana Vidyate. That wherever we will live, suppose if we do not come to that perfected stage in this life, we will start from where we left. Right? We will start from where we left. At least we are able to identify. Right? When we are grossly involved in sense gratification, we even fail to identify that we are in sense gratification. Right? But in our practicing stage, at least we are able to see, oh, now my mind is distracted away from Krishna, and now my mind is uh, absorbed in Krishna. At least that identification in the practicing stage is there. And more we practice devotional service, Vairagya Vidya, Nija Bhakti Yoga, more we practice devotional service, detachment automatically will come from bhukti and mukti, from sense gratification and even thoughts of liberation. Right. That detachment will come more and more when we practice more and more devotional service. So it's all up to us, right? As individual living entities, we have free will. How much I take shelter of the Supreme Lord. Right now it is Mishra Bhakti, not pure devotional service, Mishra Bhakti. We are performing devotional service, but we have some other attachments. Is that all right, Amritam?
Yes, Prabhu. Thanks. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Any other discussion or reflection?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances.
Please accept my
Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Hare Krishna.
And to continue on that thought, right now I'm going through a period with work where I'm experiencing, extreme physical suffering because of the level of difficulty, and that makes it very difficult to control my mind, and it makes it very difficult to even begin to consider that I'm not this body. Because my body is constantly reminding me about how much it's suffering and how much pain it's in. How am I supposed to navigate that? It's one thing when I'm not in pain and I'm not suffering. It's easier to cultivate sattva-gun and to control my mind and to focus on my sadhana, but it's actually very difficult to focus on my sadhana when I have injuries and when I'm in pain. How can I uh, truly realize that I'm not this body? Like philosophically, I totally understand. But when it comes to actually living in this body, when the body is screaming at me, how am I to work around that?
Very good question. Yeah. Again, the answer would be close to my initial answer to Amitabh's question is by continuous practice of devotional service. Now we all go to work. What makes our day more tolerant with the onslaughts of material nature outside is how strong our morning goes. If our morning sadhana goes nicely, we are, though the onslaughts of material nature which are there outside when we go to work, and we come in contact with so many different conditioning, and as you mentioned, the body becomes fatigued, at times we forget, but we'll still, when we come back, we'll think about the Lord. When we're eating prasadam, we'll think about the Lord, right? So whatever times we are able to think about the Lord by even while performing material activities. Ultimately, you want to think about the Lord. Now, think about the Lord is not that, go in a solitary place and just think about the Lord. Arjuna continuously was fighting in the war. Right? So if you consider your work also as that, means you're doing your work as devotional service to the Lord, work can become devotional service to the Lord when the results of the work is automatically engaged in the Lord's service. Then when our house is converted to a temple, then the mortgage which we pay for the house also becomes devotional service because it's the temple of the Lord. Right. So then when we transform our consciousness in that way, then whatever work which we do becomes automatically devotional service. Now a devotee at the temple, when he has to work for Krishna throughout the day, to decorate the temple nicely, to do this, to do that, or if he's constructing the temple, to always think about cement and bricks and this and that, he also gets tired, fatigued, thinking about the body. But since it is for Krishna, we feel internally that, oh, whatever tiredness I went through is for Krishna. Similarly, in whatever work situation we are, it can get transformed that, oh, this is for the Supreme Lord. When we use the results in the service of the Lord. In our own surroundings, fine, with our home, most of our devotees would consider not the home as our home, as that I am just a servant, caretaker of the home, which belongs to the Supreme Lord. We'll have the deities in the center of our activities of the home, where we offer bhoga, we offer arti, and we take care of the deities, take care of no, Tulsi Mahani, and we practice to think more that no means how home is not my home, but the temple of the Supreme Lord. Then that no means when we work continuously, even in the temple, sometimes we feel no means our body will feel fatigue. But like on Janmashtami day, no means or Ekadasi day, when we are fasting, but we are still performing devotional service, the onslaughts of that tiredness still does not wear us down because it's for the Supreme Lord. Yeah? Is it all right? Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you. I will do my best to try to change my way of thinking. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you. Prabhu. Okay, we'll end here. If anybody has further questions or discussions, reflections, please post in Nitya Bhagavata Sevya. We can discuss further or contact me. We'd like to wish you all a safe and Krishna conscious day and weekend ahead. And we'd like to offer our prayers to the Supreme Lord by chanting Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna
Krishna
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare Hare, Hare Rama,
Hare
Rama,
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 Hare
Hare
Rama,
Hare.
Rama Rama,
Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna,
Krishna
Hare
Krishna,
Krishna,
Hare Hare,
Krishna
Hare
Krishna,
Rama,
Hare Rama,
Rama,
Hare
Rama,
Rama,
Hare Hare. Hare Krishna,
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna,
Krishna, Hare
Krishna
Hare, Hare
Krishna,
Rama, Hare Rama,
Hare
Rama,
Rama, Hare
Rama,
Rama.
Rama. Shri Nrsimha, Jai Nrsimha, Jai Jai Nrsimha, Praladesha, Jaya Padmamukha Padmabhingam, Ugraviram,
Ugraviram,
Jalantam,
Vishnu
Sarvatokam,
Jalantam,
Nrsimham,
Sarvatam,
Vishnu Bhadramithyam,
Narsingham, Vishnu Bhajan, Michi Namami.
नरसिंह भगवान की जय, प्रहलाद
Ki
महाराज
Jai,
की जय.
Jai,
Let's offer our obeisances to all the assembled Vaishnavas. Vancha kalpatarubhasya kripa
Vanchakalpatarubhasya,
sindhu
Kripa Sindhu
vacha
Bhavet, Patitanam
patitanam
Pavanam,
pavanebhayo vaishnavebhyo
Vaishnavebhyo Namo
namaha.
Namo.
वैष्णवृंद की जय, ग्रंथराज
Jai,
श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील
Jai,
प्रभुपाद की जय.
Jai,
गौर प्रेमानंदे.
Hari Hari Hari
हरि
Bol.
हरि बोल.
Thank you,
Thank
everyone.
you, everybody. Hari Bol.
Thank you. Wonderful class. Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Krishna, Hare Bol.